Hello, America. I'm BryCox, BryCoxWORKSHOPS.com. Yesterday, I got a question from a potential client that wanted some commercial work. And what he wanted to do was offer me $150 an hour for 2 hours of work. And that's it. And he's like, man, I can't get anybody. Are you free? And I'm like, no. Actually, I was free at the time. For that time he wanted, I was like, but here's what I charge. And it was completely different. What he wanted, what I was, two different expectations. So the point is, how do you charge? And I get into that in my business book, Smart Secrets, as well as my sales book, and also my Psychology of Sales, which is actually kind of a combination of the two. But I'm going to give you an answer right now because I think this is really important. How do you charge for commercial work? How do you charge for digital work? How do you charge for those kind of things? So there's always going to be people that want things cheap and free. In fact, if you think of like supply demand, and from your perspective, right, it go this way. So at zero, everybody wants to hire you for zero price. But how much do you make? You make zero. And if you were to charge, let's say, $1 million on the other end of the scale, no one will hire you, so you'll still make zero if you charge $1 million for a job. So here, you make zero, but in between, you have a supply-demand curve that intersect, but in between, the more you charge, you'll start making more and more and more, but then also at some point, the more you charge, you go back to zero. And the point is, where is that middle? And is the bubble, that kind of curve, is it leaning this way or is it leaning that way? And that has a lot to do with, well, your quality, your expertise, where you live, your overhead, what's entailed. And I actually have 5 reasons digital files should cost more. It's a free article on my website. You can check that out at my website, BryCoxWORKSHOPS.com, and I'll link it. You can check that out. But a couple things to think about when you're charging for a digital file. And so what I do is I don't charge an hourly rate. I charge like a per gig and I have to price it out. And I look at a few things. I look at what's the use of the photo. If it's, say, like for a author of a book, that price is going to be different for 2 different authors. If it's an author who's trying to sell a few homemade books that they've printed online to their friends and they've just got a stack of books in their garage, that's a different price than if it's the New York Times best-selling author who's got their next book out, right? And it should be a different price. And usually you're negotiating with different people. Here you're talking to the actual author and I'm asking him, who's publishing it? How's it getting printed? And he's like, well, what does it have to do with anything? Because it has to do with how I'm charging you. Over here, right, they might make 1,000 books. Over here, they might make millions of books. And everywhere in between. And so I'll talk to them. If it's a band, if I'm shooting a band, is that band, again, a little small band locally trying to make themselves into something? Or is it some national band and it's Capitol Records calling me, right? And I've dealt with both. And so I charge differently for both. So that's the idea, is licensing. How is it used? And so I think in terms of region. Think in terms of how big is the company, right? That gives me an idea of usage. Think of also in terms of just what is entailed in terms of lighting it. If I'm shooting video, what's the sound situation? Things like that. All of that has a lot to do with, do I need to rent extra equipment? Do I need to bring my own equipment? All that kind of stuff. Commercial work, and then so when it comes down to it, showing up with a camera and shooting a few natural light images and handing them a disc does not really, sometimes it sounds like a great deal, but really in the end, right, it's not that great of a deal. And so one thing I have tried sometimes, I have a commercial client right now where I actually recommend, I was like, well, send me one of your products. Let me just shoot this one, not a whole bunch, one thing, and I'll make you just one image that you can use, see how you like it. And because of that one thing, suddenly they realize the quality was different between me and everybody else. And now I've been getting stuff from them every month and doing quite a bit of work from them every month. And that's been a really nice thing. And they're willing to spend that extra amount that I charge. And then the last thing, think in terms of quantity. Like for instance, if someone only wants 1 image or 2 images, those couple images might be a lot more expensive than if somebody wants more images that doesn't require a different setup. So if I'm shooting maybe a bunch of headshots for a corporation, or if I'm shooting a bunch of products are actually quite difficult. But if I don't have to change my lighting, and I don't have to change my setup, and I don't have to change anything, then I can shoot maybe more of those, and I might give them a better deal. I might say, you know, those 50 images are maybe about the same price as maybe, you know, 15 images would have been normally, something like that. So it has a lot of kind of thinking, figuring. There is no actual set price, and it has a lot to do with you and your particular skills. But just keep in mind, there is that curve, and the more you charge, the more you're going to make. But at some point too, you could just charge something that's so high that nobody will ever pay. But anyway, hope that helps. For my thinking, I've actually got quite a bit of info in all of these. If you're going to get just one, I would do the video, Psychology of Sales, which also talks about how to talk to people and figure out how much to charge them. Okay, if you have questions, America photographers, send them to me, my website, BryCoxWORKSHOPS, BryCoxWORKSHOPS.com.